Hello again, everyone. This is Zombie Kids Rule, and I'm back with another RPG Maker MZ tutorial. This is going to be part three of the player-driven portal system, if you want to call it that. Part one was about using, like, say, a portal scroll, and part two was about using an item, right? And in the scrolls, you had consumable scrolls, and then you had, with the item, you had a rechargeable item. So we had some different concepts there. In this one, I want to show a way to do multiple portals, which are not linked to any particular party member, and this allows you to let the player name the portal so that they can name it something that will help them remember it where it is. And because again, you could have maps and maps and maps and many maps, and because this allows the player to set a portal where they want, and then they can then jump back to it, this allows them to actually name the portals. So let me show you what is happening here in the game, and then we'll break it down like we usually do. Okay, so first thing I got to do is I got to go over here and I got to get my items, my chest of many portal things, right? So okay, so now I got my items. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here, and again, just disregard these things. I'm going to set 4 portals. So I'm going to go ahead here. I'm going to select item, and then I'm going to select the Ring of Mark and Recall, right? So in Morrowind, they had the spells Mark and the spells Recall. So this is a Ring of Mark and Recall. Now, this is not set to charges like the other items was, right? So, I showed charges from another tutorial. This is just focusing on how can we let the player choose their own names for the different marks that they're going to say. So nothing fancy here. Do you want to cast Mark or Recall? We're going to try Recall. Well, first let's do Nevermind. And of course, nothing happens. So that works perfectly fine. I do test these completely. So let's try Recall. And it says choose the mark you want to recall to. Now you'll see mark 1, 2, 3, and 4, never mind. Let's choose mark 1. This mark is not set. Okay, choose the mark you wish to recall to. Well, none of them are set because so I'm going to click never mind. So now we'll go back here and we're going to actually we're going to set a mark. So do you want to cast mark or recall? So I'm going to click mark. Which mark would you like to set? I can choose 1, 2, 3, or 4. This is just the number that I decided to do for this test. So I'm going to click mark 1. Now it says name your mark. You may use up to 16 characters. So now I will admit I did not figure out how to use the keyboard on this. So I have to use my mouse. I'm going to use this button to backspace. And then I'm going to just name this. Let's see, that was upper right. So I'm going to go upper space right, R-I-G-H-T, upper right. So now my mark upper right has been set. Okay, so now I'm going to go here. Whoops, I'm going to go over here. No, I don't want. I don't want to run into him. So now when I go into item, and it says, "Do you want to cast mark or recall?" Well, let's try recall. See if it takes me to where I want to go. I want to go to upper right. See, notice that it now changed from mark 1 to upper right. So it takes me back there. Okay, perfect. Awesome. So let's go over here. And now we're going to go, what do I want to do? I want to set a mark. I want to do mark 2. And I can do 16 characters again. So go over here. And I'm going to go upper left. And again, this is just for display purposes, right? So click OK. Now upper left has been set. So now I have 2 of them set, right? Now in theory, if I go down here and I go to set another one, it says, do you want to do mark or recall? I'm going to do mark. If I choose upper left, it should tell me it's already set. Do you want to replace it? Yes or no? I'm going to say no. And it says, now what do I want to do? And I'm going to go ahead and do mark. And I'll just do one more. So I'll do mark 3. I can have up to 16 characters. So I did test these. They all work. I'm going to do lower left, right? And again, in theory, the player would be doing something like something that's distinctive on the map, for instance, where they are. So it would help them remember, right? Maybe it's a town, maybe it's an inn, maybe whatever, a dungeon. So now I go up here, and we're gonna just randomly go back to some of these. So what do I want to do? I want to cast Recall, and I want to go down to lower left, and there I am. I'm at my lower left, and then I'm gonna go jump to. I want to go to Recall, and I want to go to upper left. Yeah, see, it works perfectly fine. All right, so that's the functionality. All right, and I did, like I said, I did fully test test all this. So we did that, we did that, we did. Okay, perfect. So now what's going on, right? So what is how do we do this? This is going to be one of those ones where I say maybe there's a better way to do this, but this is the only way I could find to do it, and it works. So if somebody sees this and they say, you know what, there's an easier way to do this, and not only easier, there's a better way to do this, by all means, please share, leave in the comments. So first thing is the item, Ring of Mark and Recall. I gave it a name, gave it an icon, gave it a description. It's a regular item, no price, so they can't sell it. It's not consumable. We're not doing a charging like we did with the amulet, the portal amulet. It's no scope. Again, I set it to always, which means you might not want that if you don't want them to be able to use it in battle. I didn't change any of these things, didn't change any of this, and it's just calling a common event, right? I created a common event called Mark and Recall, and to do that, you can double click, and you can go. You have recover, state, parameter, other. You can go to common event, and then you can either pick one or you can click on one, and at first it'll be O2, right? Because that's what I picked. Then when I go to common events and I actually create the common event and name it, it will change this automatically. That's one of the nice things about RPG Maker is if you change the value of something, like the name of something, it will cascade across wherever that is. So if you change the name of a variable, it will go through and change it in all the places that you use that variable. Same thing with this common event. So it's calling the common event Mark and Recall. Now, how did we get the ability to enter a name? So what I did was I couldn't find any other way to do this other than I knew that you could rename actors. So what I did was I created 4 actors, if you will, that really aren't anything. So I created an actor, actor 15, 16, 17, and 18. I named them. So Mark 1, right? Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, Mark 4. And there's nothing else to them, right? There's no nickname. Yes, there's a default class. Didn't change this, didn't change any of this stuff. Didn't set them up as an actor at all. Just they're like think of them as a ghost actor or a phantom actor, because all I'm doing is using the functionality of renaming an actor, and I'm using the actor as the name of the choice. Okay, so I created fake actors and named them initially what I wanted to show in the choices before the player renames the portal to whatever they want to do. Okay, so I created actors. Now the common event. What is the common event doing? So Mark and Recall. So first thing I did, again, it's name Mark and Recall. It has no trigger because we're calling this. We're going to call this, whenever we want it. We're going to call it through eventing. So I set a label first for start, because there's going to be times like when you see down here, you have to jump back to the start, right? So first off, I started with the label start. Then again, flavor text, this is just for testing purposes, just to demonstrate the functionality. Simple text thing, do you want to cast Mark or Recall? And then you show their choices, right? Mark, Recall, never mind. Okay, so there's your choices. Mark, Recall, never mind. Okay, and again, choice 1 is default, choice 3 is default for cancel. And as I've shown in other videos, to do that, for your label, you double click. Some people, I see a lot of people saying you right click and then click new. which you can do, but for me, it's just easier to double click and then label, and you type in the label you want. Okay. For the text, double click, show text, do whatever you want. And then, of course, show choices, choose the choices you want, and enter. And as I said in another video, there is a way to enter more than 6 choices. You just have to do it. This menu only gives you 6. There's another way to do it. I'm pretty sure I showed it in another in an older tutorial, but if I didn't, I will circle back and show that. And there are other resources. You can actually search for this and find other places that show it. Okay, so then you have your choices, and then once you do your show choices, it automatically does the when for you. So when mark, when recall, when never mind. Now, when mark, it does the flavor text, which mark would you like to set? And then this is where the magic's happening with those actors. So you can use, and I've said this in another tutorial before, the same things you can use in the text option, where you're doing like the /P for party member, /N for name of actor, /V for variable. You can do that here in the choices window. So this is /N, and it's basically the name of the actor, and you're identifying the number of the actor in the database. So 15. /N16/N17/N18, and those are the actors that I named Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, and Mark 4, and then never mind, right? And you set your defaults if you want them. So it automatically sets those up, and then it does the when N15, when N16, when N17. So that's what's displaying initially as Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, and Mark 4. Now, when they select and /N15, which is Mark 1, it's going to check, just like in the previous tutorials with the scroll and the amulet, it's going to check, is Mark 1 map ID greater than 0? Because like I explained before, once you set a portal, in order to set a portal and to return to a portal, you need a map ID, a X location, and a Y location. And typically it's being set to the player. So if you've never set a portal, the map ID that you're going to use for setting the portal is going to be 0. That's what it's going to be set to at the beginning, right? All variables are set to 0 at the beginning. So if you've never set a portal, this Mark 1 map ID, or whatever you call it, is going to be 0. And if that's true, it's going to show you the flavor text. This mark I'm sorry, if it's greater than 0, right? If it's greater than 0, meaning that it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever, that means you have set a portal. If it's 0, you haven't. So if it's greater than 0, it's going to say, hey, this mark's already set. Are you sure we want to replace it? Yes or no. When yes, we're going to jump to label name Mark 1, which is down here, name Mark 1. When no, jump to label start, which takes you back to the beginning and you start over again. Okay? So that's the first thing it does. It's when you choose Mark 1, it's going to check to see if the map ID associated with Mark 1, that's the variable Mark 1 map ID, if it's greater than 0, then it says, oh, you already have one set. Do you want to replace it? Yes or no? And then down here, right, if it's not greater than 0, so meaning you've never set one, it's just going to start right down here. It's going to drop right down. Flavor text. Name your mark. You may use up to 16 characters because that's how much the default out-of-the-box RPG Maker engine lets you do using just the clickable feature, right? And you say, well, how is that true? Well, here's the control. Name input processing, Mark 1, 16 characters. So look, I can edit it, and this is what it shows. But here, I'm going to double click, and this is input number. So this allows you to input a number, but so on tab 3 of the event commands, name input processing. Now it's going to ask you to select an actor. Right now, this was designed to let your characters change the name of their party members, right? But what I did was I made these fake characters, Mark 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you can select the one you want to change, and then you can change this to how many characters you want them to do. It's a maximum of 16, and then you just click OK. That's it. So that's how you're doing that name input processing, and it's going to basically to save that. Okay, and that actor is now identified with the new name. Then what we're going to do, because we're setting a mark, is we're going to take the variable that I created for mark1 map ID and set it to the map ID of the game data, right? Other map ID. Okay. And then we're going to take the variable for mark1 location X, setting it to game data, character, player, map X, right? And then the same thing for the Y, right? So mark1 location Y, set game data, character, player, map Y. Okay. And that's going to allow us to have 3 variables that are tracking the map and the X and Y location of the player at that given time, mark1. And then we're going to give flavor text your mark /n15, which now has the name of whatever the player typed in, has been set. Now, obviously, if you have a concern about a player typing in something offensive in your game, well, you can't control that. At least I don't know how to control it. But I wouldn't really be too concerned about that. And this is going here. When you're setting a mark, because I had 4 marks, you have to repeat this 4 different times. So when 15, you go through all those steps, and then when 16, all I did was I clicked here, or I'm sorry, I clicked there, came all the way down to the bottom to when it started. It says when 16. I did shift and click. So now I've got the whole thing. I did copy, and then I went down here, and under this one, I just did paste. And whoops, sorry. And then that pasted all that in there. And then I went down to 17 and I pasted, and I went down to 18 and I pasted. Then all I had to do was go through and change just a few things, like this one. I had to click here, edit, and change this to mark2 map ID, right? So I have to find that wherever these are, right? And this is where it becomes important to keep your variables organized, right? Mark1 map ID, mark1 X, mark1 Y, mark2 map ID, mark2 location X, mark2 location Y, and so on and so forth, right? So I find that, and I change it, and it's already set to greater than 0, so I have to change that. And then this doesn't change. The yes and no don't change. I would have to change the label, right? So I changed this to, it said mark1 before, so now I change it to mark2. This doesn't change because you're still sending them all the way back to the beginning. Then I have to change this label from mark1, right? Because I copied and pasted it. I have to change that from mark1 to mark2. And then this doesn't change. This changes because now I have to change it to the mark2, right? The actor 16. Then these change, right? So I just, again, and it's so easy. Once you copy and paste it, right click, edit, just click on the one you want, and it's already set to game ID map, so you don't have to do anything. Click here, same thing. Right click, edit, change your variable, and it's already set to set. It's already set to game data, map X of player. That's all easy. So you're just updating this to be mark2 instead of mark1. And then you change this to 16, right? Your mark /n, it used to say 15, you're changing it to 16. And then you do the same thing for when mark 3. So /n17 is mark 3. And you just go through and make all those same changes. You change this to mark 3 map ID. Don't change this. Change this to name mark, jump to label, name mark, and then change it to 3. Label start doesn't change. You change this to a 3 because you copied and pasted it as a name mark 1. And then this doesn't change. You update this to mark 3. You update these to your variables for mark 3. Update this to be a 17 instead of the 15 that you started with, and then you're done. And then you do the same thing for /N18, right? You do the exact same changes. They are identical. But now, once that's done, you have 4 different marks where you can, in theory, set portals, because you have 4 different map IDs, 4 different X locations, 4 different Y locations. And you're doing the different actors, actor 15, 16, 17, and 18. Now, when you get to the recall, when you choose recall, it's not much different. So I made a label, recall start, because there's times when you have to jump back to recall. Then you flavor text, choose the mark you wish to recall. The choices are essentially the same from the setting the mark, /N15, /N16, /N17, /N18 in brackets, right? So that's the same. And then it sets up the whens for you. And then this is what we've seen before in the scroll and the portal and in the previous port here. When mark 1, because now we're back to mark 1, when the map ID is 0, that means we haven't set a portal yet. So we're going to tell them that in flavor text. Jump back to label, recall start right there. And then if this is not 0, right, it's going to drop down to here, and it's just going to transfer the player. And just like you saw before in the scroll and in the amulet, you can direct designate, yes, by choosing a map, or you can designate with the ID X and Y locations using variables. So mark 1, ID, mark 1, location X, mark 1, location Y. And then that's it for the recall. The recall is even easier. So then you do the exact same thing with /N16. So I just went from here and I just copied it all, right? Right click, copy, and then right clicked and pasted where I wanted to go. And then all you have to do is update your variables. I changed mark 1 map ID to mark 2 map ID. Didn't have to change the 0. Didn't change the flavor text. Didn't change this. I updated this to be, right? I had to change this from mark 1 map ID to mark 2 map ID, mark 2 location X, mark 2 location Y. And then that was done. And then you go on to /N17 and you do the exact same thing. So once you do it once, all you have to do is copy and paste it and then just update the value. So now this is mark 3 map ID, none of this changes, and then this is changing the variables to mark 3, mark 3, mark 3. And then you do the same thing with N18, right? This is mark 4. So you copy and paste again, then you do conditional branch. If mark 4 map ID is 0, you don't have to change this, don't have to change this. You update this, transfer player, mark 4 map ID, mark 4 location X, mark 4 location Y. And that wraps up the return, or recall, I should say. And then when it's never mind, it just ends. And when never mind, it just ends, right? And that's it. That's the common event. So again, you just do your label to start so you can jump back. You do your flavor text, you do your choices. Then when it says when mark, you've got a little bit more work to do. You've got to do the flavor text. You've got to get all the choices, which again, we're using the /n and then the variable, the actor number, right? To get the actors that we set up provisionally. Then we check to see, hey, is there already a portal or not? And then, we do, if there is a portal, yes, no to change it. And then we have our label jump to name mark 1. We give our flavor text, tell them you can do up to 16 characters. And then we do that name input processing, right? Name input processing, which is on tab 3 of the event commands, name input processing. Then you do your 3 variables, just like we did with the scrolls, just like we did with the amulet for the portals. And then you give them their flavor text, and then you rinse and repeat. Do the same thing for when you choose mark 2 /N16, and when you do the third, mark 3, and when you do mark 4, and then when you do the recall, right, we do our label recall start so you can jump back to it. We do the flavor text, we do the choices, which are the exact same, then with each choice, right, mark 1, we do check the map. Do we have one already or not? And if we do, jump to label recall start. And then if not, we're just going to transfer them to the variables that we set. And then we repeat, right? We copy and paste and update the variables for mark 2, mark 3, mark 4, and then you're done. It's really that simple. Okay. So again, you have your item, which is your ring, calling the common event, whatever you want to do. And again, you could do tracking of charges if you wanted to, right? You could apply the same concepts from the portal amulet to do charges if you wanted to do that. And then the big kicker here was using the fake actors as the names of the choices that you're going to use provisionally, and then using that name input processing, right? That name input processing to rename these characters or these actors when you're in the game. Okay. And that's it. That's pretty much it. So honestly, I thought that was pretty cool. I wish there was a different way to do it, and maybe there is. I just haven't explored enough to find it. I would prefer to do this in a way that you don't have to use the actors. But again, I haven't found a way to allow the player to enter text for a variable, at least not text, right? I knew you could do a number, but I didn't know how to do it where they could just type in text and that would save in a variable, and then I could use it that way. So if anybody knows, if you're watching this and you know of a way to do it, by all means, please leave a comment. Or provide a link to something that shows how to do it, because I would love a different option to do it than using fake actors. So anyway, I hope that helps, folks. This is again, this is the third video in the Portal series. The next one is going to be having a portal, I think, for each of the actors, each of the party members, I should say, each of the party members. So this one does have multiple portals, obviously, but it's not linked to any party member, right? It's just you have 4 portals in this example that you can use as you wish. And again, you could incorporate the concept of charges if you wanted to, or something like that. Anyway, again, I hope this is helpful. If these videos are helpful, please consider liking, subscribing, getting notifications, leaving comments. I try to respond to all the comments, and if you have suggestions, if you have requests, I'm happy to try to figure something out and then show it. And again, I've got a bunch of more content that I've already created that I want to make tutorials for, and again, hopefully they're helpful. So in the meantime, between now and my next video, folks, happy gaming, happy game developing. I hope you all have a great night, and I will talk to you all later. Goodbye.